Welcome back to Scouse Farm, or welcome to Scouse Farm if you've not been here before. I shall have to be a little fleet of foot today because there's ice on the ground all over the place. I've nearly fell over a few times walking from the car to here. But I'm in Wavertree now, and I've started you off at something fit into my personality. It's a toilet. So it's a very ornate toilet where it's no longer in use. And I know, again, TJ, who's another YouTuber who does videos of places of interest in Liverpool, I know she finds like unusual toilets, but I imagine she obviously knows about this one. This one's not like tucked away in the middle of nowhere. It's in Wavertree on a roundabout. And look, there's the ladies. But I'm not here to show you bogs. I'm here to show you some of the amazing structures that have been left in Wavertree and gladly not knocked down, like some things that have been knocked down in other places of the city or misused. But it is a beautiful building, even though it is a toilet. So let's go past the carsy, keep myself horizontal, hopefully not, and vertical, hopefully so, because it is very slippy on these flags, because no one really walks on this roundabout area. But look at that. This is the Picton clock, and as you can see, it's not a small little pokey thing. It's massive, and it can be seen from quite far away when you're driving up towards here. It'd be even more visible if there wasn't so much high-rise building construction going on, but you know, that's where we are. And this was quite sad and fitting in a way. It's a monument to the person who built it, or designed it, James Picton, and that's who the road is named after, and obviously the clock. And it was built in 1884 to basically commemorate the death of his wife, Sarah Pooley, who died in 1879. And they were married, I believe, for over 50 years, so 50 years. That's back in the day, the 1800s, where apparently people died earlier, but to be married for 50 years to one person back then, that must have been quite a rare occasion for two people to survive that long. But I don't know, maybe we've been lied to about people dying early back in the 1800s and things. But this clock, on three faces of it, you've just walked past the door. I suppose that's where they go in to change the battery. But it's got three faces with three different inscriptions of poems, or like just nice things to say. And I will leave a link down below, so have a look in the video description and you'll be able to see some of the history. And there's a translation, or at least not a translation, and a way for you to see what this says, because some of the words you can't really see unless you're up close, and I've not got time to stand there and read poems to you all today, so you'll be thankful for that. And there you go, we've got the details about why it was there and who it was in memory of. So that's James Picton's wife, Sarah. And around the bottom you can see we still have these gorgeous lamps. They are incredible, solid. I imagine they're still the original ones, but you can't be too sure, but I think they probably are the original ones then. But they are fantastic. And there's another section, I think you can see that a little better than the other side. But I'll just read you the top line anyway. It says, "Time wasted is existence, used is life." I quite like that. And the rest of it is, I'm going to read it. No, I'm going to read it to you. Sorry. "The slow, sweet hours that bring us all things good. The slow, sad hours that bring us all things ill. And all good things from evil. Not at once, not all to be forgotten." So, philosophers, get amongst it. You can tell yourselves what it means. And that is the symbol to denote that it's listed, or at least some sort of heritage status, these green signs. Right, now let's go across the road some decent flowers around there, like in the I imagine in summer that it looks quite decent around that toilet. It's just something you're probably not going to hear often. But this part of Wavertree is the original like merchant's place, where the ones with a few pound notes, they used to live down this way. They didn't want it to be contained within the urban sprawl of Liverpool City as it started breaching out and coming towards Wavertree, because this was in place before Liverpool, I think. But you can see there, that's the Abbey Cinema, and that's another like 20s 30s construction, like the Art Deco era, where you've got the sweeping lines where it curves around. And this opened in 1939 and is being used as a cinema up until 1979 in one form or another, because I think it closed in about 64 or something, and then reopened a couple of weeks later because they just refitted it as a cinematic or something, where it's a different type of cinema viewing experience. But it closed in 79 as a cinema, and since then it has been a supermarket, a snooker hall, a bingo hall, and a supermarket again. So its last use was as a co-op supermarket, and they sold it in 2020. And then in April 2021 it was applied for listing status. So Lidl, who bought it in 2020 and wanted to get this, just knock it down completely and put one of those hideous little one-story sheds called supermarkets up with a car park behind it. And naturally people would object to it being knocked down and just turned into one of those identikit replicated across every city and every part of the British Isles, Lidl's or Aldi's. So obviously objections stopped it getting knocked down, but they're not going to do anything with it, I don't think. So unfortunately it's just going to be left standing as it is. But that could be a beautiful building brought back into use, but I imagine it will cost a lot of money, and I agree it's probably not in their best interest to redevelop it as it is. But on the flip side of that, how could you not think that would happen when you buy a building like that? People would obviously object if you decided to knock it down. I'm just going to wait for this bus to go past, and I'm going to run across the road at some point. But I want to take you over to something I've drove past often and didn't know what it was. I always thought it was somewhere to store grain, but it turns out it isn't. I'm just gonna safely over, and you can see it coming up now behind that van. There's a unusual looking structure there. It's another view of the cinema as we go past, I think. Look at that, the clock from a distance with a bit of snow and a funky looking cloud behind it. That is quite nice. But this little individual structure standing on a patch of grass, I always thought was, because we're coming up to Mill Lane, I assumed it was something to do with grain storage, or where people could bring their grain to be sold or traded back in the day, but it isn't. This little mini structure is a jail. This is a lockup, and there's quite a funny story behind this lockup. It was built in 1796 to save money, because, and get this, if people were drunk and disorderly in obviously around the late 1700s, the local constable was obliged and compelled to give them bed and board overnight until they sobered up, and then they'd have to reimburse the local constable for bed and board, food, water, shelter, all that sort of stuff. And I imagine quite a few people were getting drunk because it become expensive. So it was basically an old school Airbnb. If you were the local constable, anyone who got drunk and stumbled out of one of the taverns, you'd have to put them up for the night in your own house. Now, I imagine that caused a few arguments with Mrs. Constable at the time, but this lockup was built to stop that. So if you were drunk and disorderly, yeah, I was right, 1796. See, My brain hasn't gone to mush just yet. Housed drunks and criminals overnight. It later accommodated cholera victims and refugees from the Irish famine. So I imagine it'll be 1 or 2 refugees, because how can you fit many people in there? I don't know. But yeah, that's hilarious that you had to keep drunks in your house if you were the local constable. Not the best job. And another interesting point about this patch of land, this bit of greenery, grass, this is the last common land in definitely Wavertree, and I think Liverpool as well. So in the late 1700s, I think it's 1768 was the Enclosure Act, and all land was then allocated to like big families or a parish or something like that, but common land was not owned by anyone, and this apparently is still common land, so nobody owns it. And I imagine the council do cut the grass, but that's just I suppose just to keep up the maintenance, but it's not actually owned. And I don't know why, but everything else around was enclosed within the Enclosure Act, so people were actually responsible for plots of land. But what we're going to do now, I'm going to walk you over to what I originally wanted to do the video about, with the building, or the surprise there's some roadworks going on over there, but I want to take you over anyway, past this park. And before I do, this sandstone wall here, behind that, where these new build things are, in that space over there was the old Wavertree windmill. And the Enclosure Act, this is another quite funny story for historians, I suppose, but this cinema that you've just seen behind there, when that was getting built in 1939, they tried, the locals who were living around here at the time didn't want it, or some of them didn't, and they attempted to use the Enclosure Act to get it stopped, because part of the Enclosure Act stated that no walls could be more than 4 foot 6 inches high, and the reason behind that was that they needed an open space so the windmill could get wind from all directions, or whichever direction it was pointing. So they didn't want any tall structures obscuring or diverting any of the wind, and they tried to use that. Well, unfortunately the windmill was demolished in 1916, so they were trying to use a law that says we need walls and structures to be less than 4 foot 6, because the windmill needs to turn its blades, and the windmill got destroyed best part of 30 years beforehand. So that one didn't work as an objection, but people will try anything. And this park here, let's try and get a space in the road. All right, this park was a lake, as I'm walking across now Lake Road, and this was actually a lake. The entire part of this grassed area up to those walls at the back, all up there, this whole area was a lake. And this was, I can't remember the date, but obviously it was drained and covered over and made into this park. And the reason I'm here is I wanted to show you a boundary stone and then something else a little bit further up. But the Marquis or Marquis of Salisbury owned, I nearly went again then, owned most of the land around here in Wavertree. And this boundary stone that I'm about to show you inside the park was placed here to denote which part of the land belongs to Lord Salisbury and which part is public land or owned by somebody else. And again, that happened at the time of the Enclosure Act. How can I get in here? See if I can get through here. Yep, I'm in. Oh, it's cold. It is cold. My fingers are freezing. And I do need a gimbal. I know I say it often, but my shoulders are wrecked. And this little beauty here is the stone in question. Not a great day for showing you this, is it? Where they're digging a hole where I want to show you something in a minute. But here we go. This is a boundary stone to denote. You've got the crown there. I think it says something underneath, but it's very poorly visible to me right now, and there's an S which I imagine is for Salisbury. Let's see if I can read anything under here. No, I can't read any of that. I don't even think it is a word, it just looks, it looked like it when I was approaching it. But that's a crown, and then underneath, oh my fingers, and underneath we've got the S. So that's Lord Salisbury's property. And the original owner of Lake House, there's a house, or was a house around here called Lake House, and he didn't want people traipsing over his land to come to this lake. So again, he diverted the road, and then it was part, again, used during the Enclosure Act to make sure that they didn't walk on his land. So I don't know if I can get out of this one yet. I might be able to get out. Yeehaw. And what I'm going to show you now is the reason. It was my dad who told me about this, and I didn't know anything, and I've drove past this often, and I've obviously seen it, but I've never noticed it. But you're about to see what I was originally going to do the video about, which is the Monk's Well. Look at that, just plonked here. I can smell gas, so I think I know what they're doing in that road. Whoa. Need to bottle some of that up, the price of it. But this is the Monk's Well, and there was a monk's house not too far from here back in the day, but again, I'll leave a link down below if you want to check out the full details. And it was demolished, but the story goes in a nutshell is that you would stop off here because this was a natural spring underneath, and you'd have to, or you supposedly throw a coin in, like a wishing well type thing, to give alms, ALMS, and I'll just show you the plaque. And then all of that was supposed to go to the local monks in the monk's house. Source of legend for many generations, the Latin rhyme means, "He who here does naught bestow, the devil laughs at him below." And that means if you don't throw a coin in the bottom of the well when you take water on the way past, the devil is chained up down the bottom and he'll start laughing, and it's to imply that if you don't do so, the devil's laughing because he's caught another soul, or you're going to get some bad fortune. But it doesn't look too good at the minute, but apparently it's planted up with nice flowers in the summer, but it isn't, so obviously it's not looked after. And there's something else on the top there, another inscription, and some more inscriptions a little bit further down. But the pump itself, it had a pump added to it in around 1834, 1835, and that was to bring the water up from underground. And there's supposed to be a lot of tunnels around here as well. And the cross at the top, I think that inscription, if my Latin serves me correct from school, is "God gives and man drinks." Now, I'm only kidding, I read that up, I know what it means because I read it beforehand. I haven't got a clue what Latin is for that, but that's what it means. And apparently, yeah, there's some secret tunnels around this way, and they lead up to Chilwell Abbey apparently, and everywhere else, because Liverpool, for those who know the history, it's just full of secret tunnels here, there and everywhere. So I think that'll do you. I'm freezing cold, so I'll leave it there. I'm gonna walk back down to where I parked up the car. And just one thing on that well is it was one of the first listed buildings or listed structures in Liverpool in 1952, when all these historical buildings and things in Liverpool started getting protected status. So yeah, we're surrounded by history here in this little patch of Wavertree, and it is a beautiful little spot. So thank you all very much for watching. Please like the video. I can just about extend my thumb, it's that cold. And subscribe to the channel if you're new. And Scouse Farm, get himself to work and warm up with the brew. See you all again soon.